So a few years ago, my mom and I got into a really bad car accident. We had just gotten off of the plane and were heavily jet lagged, but I had plans to go hang out with my friends. Now, my friend, she lived on a really steep and windy hill, and as we were turning to go into the block that led to her house, our car crashed into a bush fence. And because of this collision, our car had flipped over twice and made us land on the side of the car. Now, eventually, we had help from the people around us to get out of the car, and as we stepped out of the car, my friend's mom had started to approach us with something in her hand that was smoking. And as she approached us, she started circling this unknown object around our heads as she repeated this phrase saying, "God loves us and how we are blessed." And I'm pretty sure this was probably incense or sage, but she just kept putting it around our heads and kept repeating this phrase. The reason why she kept saying this is because even after such a lethal car accident that had just happened, that would usually have other people end up in the hospital because of severe injuries, or even possibly death, my mom and I didn't even have a single scratch on our body. And this is when I realized of how lucky we were, of how lucky that my mom and I were standing there alive, and we weren't in the hospital getting cured for a severe injury. And this was happening when I was 10 years old, and this is truly when I felt gratitude for the first time in my life. Now, in the following months, COVID had occurred, and I had some other personal issues that really created this negative mindset for myself. And this mindset would consume me for the next 3 years of my life. It got so bad to a point where it dictated every single thing that I did. How I interacted with people, the people I interacted with, and even just stepping outside of this house. It got so bad to a point where I just started researching. I started researching about how to overcome this negative mindset. And what I came across on is the importance of shifting your mindset and how the value of where you direct your attention can completely change perspective and how you live your day-to-day life. So I started implementing these habits that I learned into my life, and well, it changed how I started to interpret things. And it made me go into this positive mindset and made me stop feeling so negative all the time. Now, attention. Your attention is always on something, whether you realize this or not. When you're walking down the street and you're looking at a building or you're looking at the ground, your attention is always on that. And when any of your senses are ignited, so is your attention. Attention is one of the most valuable resources that we obtain, and it can even be compared to a currency. See, we choose to invest our attention into people, into conversations, the experiences that we have. And if we choose to invest this into other people, the same logic should be applied to ourselves and the thoughts that we have. See, if we're constantly, in the terms of currency, depositing our attention into negatives in our life, we just create emotional debt for ourselves. But if we choose to invest our attention into the positives of our life, it creates a wealth of optimism and resilience. Now, to apply this into an example, think about two people. They just survived a terrible earthquake, which resulted in the loss of so many lives and the destruction all around. Let's say person one, they decide to focus all their attention onto the negative outcomes of this earthquake. They start thinking about the fear that they felt, the losses that they're experiencing, and all the destruction around them. It gets so bad to a point where that's all they can think about. It consumes them, and it gets harder for them to heal. Now, person two, on the other hand, has a different approach. Even if they experience the same thing as person one, they choose to direct their attention on the possible outcomes of this earthquake. They start volunteering, and they start trying to build the community back up. And now, whenever they look back onto this experience of this tragedy, all they can think about is how recognizing these small things that can change an outcome of a tragedy really puts into perspective of how even in the face of tragedy, there can be simple acts that can guarantee the hope and kindness that comes with humanity. Now, these comparison of these two people's mindsets really puts into perspective of how one simple shift in the direction of your attention can change the way you interpret an experience. which creates a mindset for yourself. Now, comparison. Comparison is something I am not fond of at all. I agree with the statement that says comparison is a thief of joy. But sometimes comparison is necessary to put your life into perspective. See, if you think about people who are living in countries and they don't have basic access to healthcare, transportation, education, food, and even a house and a roof over their head, you can really reflect on the privileges that you have in your life. It can cultivate a gratitude for yourself over time when you start to direct your attention on these privileges that you have, even with how simple they might be. Anything that you are doing, anything that you have can be considered a privilege. Whether if you can walk, if you can have 3 meals a day, if you can go to sleep at night knowing, guaranteed that you will wake up in the morning. That is a privilege that someone somewhere out there in the world does not have and always dream of. So by using these examples, by using these examples of these people who experience these tragic earthquakes and people who live in these countries, I'm not trying to disregard their situation or be insensitive about it. However, I'm trying to emphasize how recognizing the positive factors that you have in your life and the privileges that you have can often, if you think about these and bring your attention towards these, it can make you reflect because these are things that you often disregard in your day-to-day life because they are so normalized to you. With all this said, even when you go through these negative experiences, I'm not saying how you shouldn't be able to feel any of the emotions that you feel. It is important to go feel these emotions and handle them and try to process what you are going through because that is necessary for growth for anyone. However, I want to highlight how even when you go through these emotions and experiences, it is important to recognize these small positive factors in your life and these privileges that you have, because recognizing these can create a beacon of gratitude. And when you experience these negative things in your life and you start to recognize these privileges and positive factors, you start creating a habit over time, building and developing a mindset over time which can override the negatives that you feel with positives in your life, with the recognition that you have. Thank you.